Great. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to the National Clearinghouse webinar, Never Too Early, Youth with Disabilities Abroad. And my name is Justin Harford. I'm a project coordinator with the NCDE. And welcome, everybody. Before we get any further, I want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. A version will be available after. And I'm going to ask you to just chat in the box where you're joining us from today. I'm sure we've got people from a variety of different places. So in the chat box, go ahead and chat that out to us. Audience members, we want you to have your microphones and videos off the whole time, but you will be able to communicate through the chat box. And I'm going to invite my colleague, Joey Lenny, to go over some accessibility tips with us. Take it away, Joey Lenny.
Great. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Hi, everybody. I'm Joy Lenny Moran. I'm part of the NCDE team at MIUSA, and I am just going to be sharing some access tips for this session today. If you can please turn off your microphones and videos until a moderator invites you to turn them on. If you plan to use audio, please be in a quiet room or use headphones. To view captions, click the CC button or use the StreamTalks link that will be provided later on. If you have a comment to share, send a chat to the moderator to request the floor if you would like to speak, or just send it in the chat. Change to gallery view in the top corner to see slides and interpreter and presenters when screen sharing is happening. You can use the hide non-video participants feature to make it easier to see the interpreter and speakers. So the hide non-video participants feature, the way to use this is, this makes it easier to see the interpreter and active presenters by removing the clutter from your Zoom screen. So on the left, we have a before picture of just a bunch of little boxes. Some boxes have names on them, some have videos, and it's really crowded. And the box to the left, an after image is when you use the hide non-video participants feature, and you can only see participants who have their videos on. So to do the hide non-video participants feature, just find any participant with their videos off and go to the top corner. There's a blue square with 3 little white dots, and you just click on that, and from the scroll down menu, drop down menu, you choose hide non-video participants. And that is all. Justin, I'll pass it back to you to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Joey Lenny. So I'm going to invite our panelists. They can turn on their videos now. Everyone else, keep your videos off and microphones muted. So it looks like we've got people from all over the United States. I can see in the chat box, Kansas, Fort Worth, Portland. Glad to see that we've got some people from the disability resource community and probably from universities. I see a couple of folks that look like they might be from Centers for Independent Living, so that's really great to see. So I think with that, we're going to go ahead and start. So just kind of in a nutshell, I mean, the idea of this webinar is for you to hear some stories of people with disabilities who studied abroad in different contexts in different places. And the great thing about this, we usually don't think about people in high school as really being at that point. I've definitely spoken to a number of people in the world over my 5 years with MIUSA that will say, well, I don't know if it's really time for my kids or my students to start thinking about study abroad because they're, only in junior high. And I think the title of this webinar really says it all, never too early. So I think as you kind of get to know our panelists and their stories, I hope you're going to kind of realize that it really is never too early to study abroad, or especially never too early to start thinking about studying abroad. So And now with that, without any further ado, I want to just invite our panelists, but just another thing too, just as you're kind of listening, think about any questions you might have. I think we'll have a little bit of time at the end to cover some of your questions. Yeah, and we've also considered, your questions that we've seen on the registration. So thank you very much for those as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves. And so introduce yourself and kind of what you're up to these days. And I'm going to start that. I'm going to start with Samsara Counts.
Hey, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So hi, I'm Samsara. I'm currently a software engineer at Amazon. I work in Alexa AI, and I recently graduated from George Washington University in 2019. And after I graduated, I did the Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange for Young Professionals program in Germany. And I stayed in Saarbrücken. You can see it's my background in Zoom. And I'm really interested in computer science. I studied that as my major in college, especially ethical artificial intelligence, ethical computer science. So I was lucky enough to do that when I was abroad in Germany as well. Also, it's worth noting that I participated in a short-term study abroad in college. It was actually called the Tomodachi Kakahashi Inoue Scholars Project. So I went to Okinawa, Japan for 10 days. So that's also a short exchange opportunity that I did. Thank you.
That's great, Samsara. Thanks. I mean, my first actually experiences were short-term in high school before I did a year in South America. And we love those short opportunities because they kind of get people into that. And I love your story too, because it kind of shows that, even if you're thinking about STEM careers, exchange is still something that you can benefit from. Michelle Shi.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Shi. I'm currently working as a teacher of students with visual impairments with DC Public Schools. So I teach kids who are blind and visually impaired. My study abroad experience, the most recent one was in 2016. I went abroad with Fulbright Taiwan, where I was an English teaching assistant for a year. And then in 2012, I was with Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange in a high school program for a year as well. And then recently, for the past 4 summers, not this summer because of COVID, I was in Hong Kong with Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth, teaching some classes and some summer camp programs.
Thanks, Michelle. How about Anna?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. This is my pleasure to be here today. So my name is Anna. I'm 19 years old, and I'm from the Republic of Georgia. So I'm currently the university student studying on social and political sciences. I'm also youth activist. I volunteer a lot. Well, I can say that during last time, I can say that it's already my hobby. I love to volunteer and do something good for other people. In general, I try to volunteer in projects which aims to spread awareness about people with disabilities, because I'd like to give more information about people with disabilities to Georgian people, because they do not have a lot of information about us. And I think that we should break stereotypes by doing this. And I also try to, show them what can we do in general and break stereotypes, and show them that, I'm not only speaking, I can do some stuff too. So yeah, that's what I do in general.
Anna, I know you spent a year at a U.S. high school with the Future Leaders Exchange program from the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, Department of State. And it's, for those of you who don't know, it's a program for high school students from former Soviet Union countries to come and spend a year in the United States at a U.S. high school. I mean, you talking a lot about volunteering though, did you get a chance at all to do any volunteer opportunities when you were in the United States?
Yes, I can say that my volunteering history starts from the United States because before,
Oh, it starts
well,
there.
I would not think, yes, I would not think about it. Maybe I would do volunteer, but I would not realize that it was volunteering, that it was good things, you know. And it started from there, I can say. And I don't know, it really feels good because I can say that volunteering made my year in the United States.
Were you ever nervous about like how that was going to work, or were you pretty much confident, like, I'm just going to go straight ahead and do this?
Sorry, I didn't.
Were you
I
ever
didn't
like
hear.
kind of nervous about the volunteering or the, because I don't know, when I was in high school, I was kind of like worried. I was kind of good at academics, but like, I don't know if I would have really had the guts to like go and try like, helping out at a garden
Oh
project or something.
no, I just go and I want to do it because I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that volunteering is a very important thing. Important for other people, and I love to do I love to do good things for other people because it makes me feel good in general. And I've never thought that it's very you get to very big responsibility in general when you volunteer, but when you are sure that you want to do this, it's okay.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. It's just kind of like setting that goal and going ahead. I'm going to direct the next question at Michelle. And Michelle, you mentioned that you did the Congress Bundestag program in high school, and I guess you did Fulbright, and you did Fulbright too. How did you discover those opportunities, and focusing especially too on your Congress Bundestag? How did you, being a high school student, how did you discover that opportunity?
So it was actually my friend who kind of opened me up to the world of study abroad because I didn't even know it was an option. Like one day during lunch, she just came to me and she was like, Michelle, I will be like gone for the whole next year because I'm going to Japan to study abroad. And I was like, wait, what's that? Like, and then she told me more about it and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. I want to do that too. So I went online and I looked it up and I was like, I don't have the money for this. So I was like, but there has to
You were
be
looking at other programs, like just different
yeah.
programs on the online.
Yeah. And then I was like on YouTube, and then I found this one girl who was talking about her NSLIY exchange. That's I believe it stands for National Security Language Initiative. It's another study abroad program that's also sponsored by the US Department of State. And when I went through that like application process, one of the recruiters called me and she was like, like I was applying to go to China, and she was like, you already speak Chinese, your family's from China, why don't you try like a different country? There's also, Germany. And so she told me about this program and I was like, oh, this may be a better fit to open my horizons a little more. And so I ended up just applying for CBYX.
That's a great story. Wow. Like, you're too qualified for this other program. Yeah. For those, and I just learned a few months ago, and it's just, you're just learning something new every day in this business, but apparently NSLIY, which is the National Security Language Initiative for Youth, is pronounced Nestle Y. So I don't know. Now I'll just always think of chocolate. But so that's wow. That's really great though. That's a great story. What about Samsara? How did you discover your program, which was also under CBYX, but it was more of a post-college professional exchange?
Honestly, it wasn't as exciting as Michelle's story, but I was really interested in going abroad and studying abroad just in college, but my course slowed and schedule didn't really allow for it. So I decided, I'm like, okay, maybe I can look for something after college to do, like Fulbright or some of the other programs. So I went to my university's Center for Fellowships, which every university in the US has one. I definitely recommend going there for resources to apply to study abroad opportunities or other fellowships. And I talked to one of the employees there about what countries I wanted to go to. And I said, well, Germany would be cool. I've always wanted to learn German. And they said, oh, check out CBYX. So I ended up applying to 2 programs in Germany. And I found out from my fellowships office.
Oh, so this was not, so you found this not through the study abroad office at your college, but through the fellowships office. like in the
Yes,
Career Center?
although I think they like work very closely with the study abroad office.
Oh, nice. That's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, your story. I took a year of chemistry and science classes, and I was basically starting the day at 7 a.m. and ending it at 2 a.m. And I wouldn't have, if I had been able to stay on that path, I wouldn't have been able to study abroad. So, but it's great that you were able to kind of check in with your resources and find that opportunity for after you finished.
I will say, if I had to rename this webinar, I would also say it's never too late to study
Yeah.
abroad, because that's kind of my story. Like I always wanted to study abroad, but never made time for it until after I graduated college. And I just want to emphasize that like there are tons of opportunities to do it throughout your like career as a young professional, before or after college, when you're working, stuff like that. So never too late.
Always the right time, the young and the young at heart, and study in international exchange. That's great. Yeah, we're actually going to be putting out an edition of our away journal later on, and there's quite a range of ages in the stories that we're looking at featuring. So I hope you all will get a chance to look at that. And going back to Anna, yeah, again, I mean, high school for me was a total maelstrom. So how did you find this flex program in the middle of all of what else you were doing back in your country of Georgia?
Yeah, so I should start from the, very early age, because I was only 4 when I said that I wanted to go to the USA. I don't know why did I say this. It just happened, it just came to my mind. I did not have any idea how good this country was and stuff like that. But I don't know, I just said it. After that, when I got like, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, I heard about Flex program. And I don't know, I just reminded myself that I said that I wanted to go to the USA. And just like that, I heard about Flex program from my schoolmates who were the alumni of Flex program, and I asked many questions. Really, I would call them every day and ask about their experience and stuff like that to know what is it like, what should I do and stuff. And yeah, that's what I came up to going to the United States. And I have to point out that I tried only once, and it was so, I don't know, exciting for me. I didn't have any, my parents didn't have any hope that I would.
They were sort of hoping you wouldn't, right?
Only, oh yeah, they were just like, oh, this is the first time, and they didn't think that I would, go to the final and stuff like that. And I was saying that, yeah, I'm not. I don't think like that too. And I was like, no, I think that I will. This was just, crazy experience because I had to pursue them. Yeah. Well, I'll probably talk about it later, but yeah, that's how I found the Flex program.
Thanks. And I actually kind of appreciate you also talked about your kind of early motivations too for pursuing that opportunity. And it's kind of amazing. It kind of went back pretty early. I know not nearly as early. Mine went back probably when I was finishing high school. What about Samsara? How did you kind of get your motivation? I guess you could kind of say you almost kind of covered this, but anything you'd kind of add to that regarding kind of how you got motivated to do this CBYX exchange?
Honestly, I had the privilege of going to elementary school, high school, where they taught Spanish as a foreign language, and I had really good Spanish teachers, and they just really encouraged this curiosity in me to explore different cultures, to learn different languages. So just kind of over time, I think my interest grew as I took Spanish classes, and I thought, I want to learn another language. And just my family history, I actually have some German heritage in there. So that's how I picked German. And I decided to do this opportunity as opposed to to try to study abroad, as opposed to trying to just learn German first or etc. Honestly, because I wanted to get the full in-depth experience of another culture. Because I feel like there's no better way to do that than just being there and exploring and learning.
That's great. The thing I love about Congress Bundestag and Nestle Y is to the best of my knowledge, you don't really even need a command of the language. You just have to be interested in it. and motivated to study it. So those two are really great programs for the aspiring linguist who just kind of wants to start from the beginning and learn a language like, well, I mean, in Congress Bundestag, it's German, but in Nestle Y, it's Chinese, it's Japanese, it's a variety of critical languages. What about Michelle? How did you kind of get your motivation to do your Congress Bundestag program?
So ever since I was really young, I
What's
wanted
up?
to be a teacher. And I was always debating with the idea like, oh, should I teach domestically or should I teach internationally? And I always had an interest in kind of just comparing different education systems. But I've only ever been to school in the US. So I was like, I really want to see what school is like in Germany. And just compare that to see how it's similar or different to the United States. And I think that was one of my main motivations. And the other one was just, I had never been to Europe prior to that point, and I really wanted to see what it was like.
Michelle, what was the application process like?
So there were two parts. There's a written component and then there's an interview component. The written component at the beginning, is just basic like personal information, all that. And then there's I believe there were six like short answer questions. And it would ask you things like, oh, what's your family structure like? Why do you want to study abroad? Tell us about a time when, you had to face a non-academic failure. And some other ones that I don't know off the top of my head now. And I think there was also, you had to write a letter to your host family, your prospective host family. And then during the interview, there was two sections. There's like an individual interview where they would ask you to elaborate on your application. They would ask you more questions. And then there was like a group activity. And I remember at that time, it was like, we weren't allowed to talk, but all of us had to try to build a tower together or something like that. And I think that was the extent of the entire process. And then after that, my parents were asked to write like a recommendation letter for me, like a frank and honest evaluation of how they think their daughter would do abroad. And I think that was it.
Or like your key considerations, like they haven't distilled. It's just more
So you
like,
had to definitely convince your parents. What about Samsara? I mean, you kind of applied for same sort of a CBYX program, but it was a different program under CBYX. But how did the application compare to Michelle's experience?
Honestly, the CBYX for young professionals application is super similar to the high school program. So it's a written application for the most part, submit information about yourself, resume, what you've done, fill out some short answers about explaining why you want to go to Germany, why you want to participate in this program, just the standard stuff. And then from your like written application, you're selected as a finalist to do the interview portion, which when I did it in 2019, it was verbal. So like you meet in person at a location at a city near you with two other candidates and like a team of the interviewers. And CBYX has a knack for giving weird interview questions. I also had like a challenging group interview where we had to listen to everybody's bios. And then they didn't tell us this, but after each candidate had explained their bios and why they want to go to Germany, we had to repeat them and then talk about everybody as if we were introducing them. And these are people I never met before. So that was interesting. And then once you do the finalist interview, you get a selection email a few months later, whether you've made it or not.
Wow, kind of an interactive portion. Kind of reminds me of the foreign service application in a way, with that kind of that activity you mentioned. Anna, like what was the application process like for Flex students?
So it's like, there are three stages in general. Like first stage is where you go and they check your grammar knowledge. I mean, I have to say this, that they do not pay attention to, how good English you have, but they actually need to know if you can communicate or something like that. And then next stage was like, you go and write 3 essays, which checks your, personality, your leadership skills, and so on. And they check how, if you are ready to live alone, not alone, but with the host family in the different environment, if you can make decisions by yourself, and if you can probably solve some problems too, which is very, which is very dependent to your personality if you have those skills. And then I have to say that they do not pay, again, like they do not pay attention to your academics or your English level and so on. And then third stage is, I think, the most, difficult, I can say, but not very, but most difficult, because you fill out this big application where you write about yourself, you write a letter to your host family, you get like recommendation letter, and also they also make sure about your health too. And yeah, and then there is final, when you just, get ready your documents.
Great. Thanks, Anna. So yeah, for all of you, these are fully funded opportunities, and if you apply for one of them or any other program under, for example, Department of State, like you should expect a pretty extensive application with lots of essays and interviews. So
yeah, and I have to add that this is not like, sorry, this is not like, sometimes they ask me if it's a very difficult process. I can say that it's not very difficult if you are true. If you show your personality, if you show yourself, then everything is very, very easy.
You're right, because like you said, I mean, these opportunities they're trying to kind of get a sense of, not that necessarily that you're a top performing student. They kind of want it. They also want to know about the whole package, all your background experiences, and having a disability gives you a unique background actually too, in that process, because they're trying to get people with varied experiences to be on these programs, to make it a richer experience for everyone. So Michelle, I want you to tell us kind of what was the reasonable accommodation, what kinds of reasonable accommodations did you get, did you receive, if any, on the program? And that could be, formal or informal, or it could also be like techniques you just used to adapt. Kind of what helped you to be successful in the program, and how did you get it?
Okay, so I'm an example of not what to do, of what not to do, sorry.
Or what would you have done different?
Yeah, because I pretty much did not tell anyone that I had a disability, because I wanted the opportunity so bad, and I was scared that if I had told them like, oh, I have a disability, that they, wouldn't pick me or something. So literally I only told them I had a disability like after I got the final call, and I told them, I can't walk up and down the stairs without holding onto a rail, and I don't see that well. And they were like, oh, okay, well, we can make sure that the places have rails, or that, we can help you find an accessible entrance. But that was pretty much all I had told them, which later on led to some issues of like me having to switch host families and stuff, because the housing wasn't necessarily completely accessible for me. Yeah, so if I could go back and do this again, I would be 100% transparent, because I found that, at least with CBYX, they're Germans in general, I think, are very understanding if you tell them upfront what you need, Yeah. So I would do that completely the opposite of how I went about it.
Samsara, what do you think about this question?
I think the CBYX program tries to learn from past participants and improve every year. So I'm happy to say that my CBYX experience was very accessible for me. I realize it's a different experience for everybody. Disability is different. So I have a chronic illness and I take a lot of medication, and my reasonable accommodations that were honestly just built into the program and built into their process of once you accept the offer to join the program, they just send this out to everybody saying, we'll send you a health form. You do need to disclose your disability on the health form. or at least you should, because it's in your best interest and you've already been selected. So that was kind of nice. You have the security of knowing you're going to do the program. And then you disclose that you have the disability. And so they actually have a doctor, like psychiatrist, that everybody who discloses that they take medication or have had mental health problems in the past, you get to schedule a free appointment with this German American psychiatrist, and you guys talk about your plan for keeping up with your meds and having enough meds when you go abroad, as well as if you need ongoing treatment, especially like with respect to mental health, how you're going to get that support when you're in Germany. And the fact that this was built into the program, I think was just fantastic. I can also say all of the administrators, if I ever had an issue or wanted to talk about something, were very happy to comply, like with what I needed. So that was great.
That's great to hear. And Anna, what was it like for you with your disability and getting
Yeah.
getting reasonable accommodations on the Flex program?
Yeah, okay. I have to say that I always say that I love Flex and everything which is connected to Flex because, they were just ready for me. I mean, they were not like when I went to the, to the center where I had to write a grammar test. They were not like, oh my God, what should we do and stuff like that because as usual in Georgia, it happens like that. And I was like, oh, they have a test in Braille. And then, everything, I mean, as they could, everything they made everything very accessible for me. And when I left Georgia, I was in the airport and stuff like that, I got a sighted guide in the airport. I met a sighted guide in airport, which was already, there. I did not have to think before that, oh, okay, I need a sighted guide and I should ask for that or something like that. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's too comfortable. And, when I go to somewhere in Georgia, it's very stressful for me because I have to plan everything before I get there. Because if I get there like, in that minute, they're gonna just lose. They're gonna tell me that, oh my God, we don't know what to do. Oh my God, oh my God. And it was too surprising for me. In general, Flex was very bright and surprising for me with everything.
Nice. It sounds like kind of you were kind of thinking you were going to be doing all the accommodations yourself, and they end up kind of lending a hand. I guess I imagine that probably put your parents at ease a little bit more.
Yeah.
They weren't super excited about your application initially. I mean, what kind of convinced them?
Yeah, they were like, you are too young. And I was like, no, I'm not. You are asking me like that, right? That if I convince them, yeah. They were like, you are too young yet, and where are you going? Are you gonna handle, being alone for a year and stuff like that? I was like, yes, I need it, but they were still not very, sure that I would do that. I don't know why, because maybe only that I was young. They just thought like that. Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 15.
You're 15, yeah, so pretty young.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the reason that, for example, I have like visual impairment or something. No, it's not the reason because they never thought like that. But I was too young and I was like, I just need it. I should do it. And I did not have time to, lose. So I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And I convinced them. I asked my teacher to talk to them. And I asked everyone who I could ask to talk to them and convince them. And yeah, we did it. And now they are grateful.
That's great. Michelle, what did you do to I think your parents had some trepidations. What did you do to convince them?
So I applied for the program secretly. Like I didn't even tell them. until I needed a
Don't tell
ride.
them.
Yeah, until I needed a ride to the interview, and they're like, "Wait, you applied for what? You did what?" And they were freaking out. So they followed me all the way to the interview, and like nobody else's parents were there, but my parents like wouldn't leave. So they were like grilling all the AFS volunteers about what was your experience like was she okay, like were you okay and everything. And I'm like, I haven't even made it yet, so why are you like acting like I'm about to leave. So yeah, it took a lot of convincing. And even then, like even after the interview, and I was like, oh, I think the interview went well, and they're like, well, we're praying that you don't get it because we don't want you to go. And then they were like, later they had to write some letter, and I didn't realize this until like way later, but they had to write a recommendation letter for me. And they wrote something that I found out way later, and it was the worst recommendation letter I've ever read in my life. They were like, our daughter Michelle is totally, you have to know, she has like a visual impairment, she has CP, she like can't walk independently, she needs a lot of help. We are so sorry for whoever like it has to host her. And I was like, all right, I'm not getting this. But I'm glad that the admissions committee saw past that and offered me a spot. Yeah, so I guess it's just everything ended up like how it was supposed to, hopefully. Yeah. And then I guess it was just in the end I told them, Germany is relatively safe, like they have a lot of public transportation, and I think I should be fine. And so finally they allowed it because my grandparents, my grandpa used to be a captain for a ship, and he went to Germany many times in the past, and he always gave raving reviews about Germany. So my parents just finally agreed and said, okay, you can go to that country for a year.
Yeah, they kind of warmed up to the country too. That's good. That kind of, it's good that you were able to get through. And I guess the bright side is, also they saved you the trouble of disclosing. The program knew when you submitted your request. Yeah, so that is the thing when you're in high school, and parents are still kind of getting used to the idea that their kids are kind of growing up, and so they can kind of have trouble letting them go. Samsara, I'm gonna, you can answer that question, but I know you were in college though, so I think it might have been a little different, or you can also answer whether or not you had a host family, or maybe like kind of what your housing situation was like on your program. So if you have a comment on the previous question, or go ahead and kind of tell us what your housing situation was like.
Yeah, so for the previous question, I had just graduated college, so it was, for my parents, it was more like, I'm doing this, and they're like,
okay,
be safe, please.
Right.
But they were very supportive and friendly. They actually came and visited me in Germany when I was there, so that was cool.
So you got to give them the tour.
Yeah. So accommodation, like housing accommodations. So for the CBYX for Young Professionals program, it's actually pretty standard, the housing that you go through. So the first 2 months of the program are German language intensive courses, and nearly everyone is placed in a host family. So I was placed in a host family. I actually lived in the city of Radolfzell on Bodensee, in South Germany on Links Konstanz, with a host mom. And then for the second part of the program, most people are, when you go study at a university, all participants go live with another host family. I was kind of unique in that the third part of the program is an internship in your career field. And I'd actually found an internship before I made it to Germany. So I was able to get housing through my internship. But I actually ended up not staying there for a while. And instead I moved to a German shared apartment. It's called a WG, a Wohngemeinschaft. And I actually ended up living in the same city for the third part of the program with other exchange students and some Germans. So yeah, it was very interesting. That's
So
First
first a
part was
host
host
family and then
family.
exchange students.
Yeah.
Nice. And so like, I mean, I bet that was kind of a unique experience too. I mean, I think we always think about it like the ideal experience is like being with a local host family and learning about the culture and everything. But I mean, I'll bet your experience was probably even kind of more international, even kind of even beyond Germany in the last third.
Yeah, you know, it was a really good mix because, you know, there are some native Germans in there, but there are also people from Mexico and France. The city I lived in, Saarbrücken, is on the border of France, so there's a lot of French influence and exchange there. But yeah, it was very cool. It was an interesting mix of people.
Were there, you can answer this or not, but like, was there anyone that you kind of confided to about any of your disabilities, like who kind of you was a resource for you, kind of any of your friends or housemates, or kind of how did you navigate that, or did you kind of mostly just prefer to keep it kind of to yourself and manage it on your own?
So my disability is mostly invisible, so it just didn't come up as
Mhm.
most of the conversation. Like I had to talk about it with the program administrators and of course the psychiatrist I talked to. But for the most part, I didn't really talk about it with anyone. But I know that's not always the case because just disability can be so different.
Right.
Yeah, but I did, you know, my parents would check in with me and just, they actually helped me get the second part of my meds because if you take medication, prescription medication every day, it's a big deal to try to get like 9 months, 9+ to 11 months of medication. Like I brought it with me because that's easier actually, even though it doesn't sound easier. But yeah, that getting that was a bit of a hassle.
Yeah, yeah, getting it from your insurance. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And we have resources on our website actually for kind of what you should know about bringing medications to different countries. And I know the European Union kind of has its own set of standards, although I think I found that they tend to be a little bit more lenient than some other places, more accommodating. So, but it's good to know kind of what the regulations are in the country that you're going to. So going back to what about Anna? Kind of what was your, tell us about her host family in the United States.
All right, I can say that my host family was, very good, and in general, it's very, very good challenge to, for me at least, it's very good challenge and too fun to be in the different environment, and then especially when this environment is very good and very, I don't know, exciting. It makes everything very well because my host family were they were volunteers. Also, they loved music as I do, and I don't know. I think we were very good fit to each other in general. So that's what I can say about my host family, and they were very active people,
That's
and
great.
I loved that. Yeah, it's very important when you go there. They showed everything to me because I said that I want to try everything, and then after that phrase, they were like, "If you want to try everything, just come with us." Yeah.
Great. That's great. Yeah, and a lot of these programs too, they'll have you fill out like information about yourself, and they'll kind of try to match you up with a family. So that way, like things like music or hobbies, you kind of get matched with folks that kind of share those interests with you. So that's great that you were able to get that match. And I think Michelle Shi, you mentioned like, I mean, your first host family didn't quite work out because of maybe possibly some disability related challenges. But what kind of how did it turn out in the end as far as, you know, with your second family?
So
My
my
second
second,
film. Oh, sorry.
oh, sorry.
Sorry for Michelle. Sorry about that.
Okay. So I actually had 3 host families total.
Whoa.
The,
Okay.
yeah, the first one was the temporary host family that everyone had. They were supposed to just host for 2 weeks, but eventually they wanted to host longer. But then, because of issues with that, I had to have like an interim host family where I stayed with another one of my study abroad friends, and her family was also like on a farm as well. They had like 6 kids and a huge farm. It was a cool experience. I mean, I like got to learn how to like cut wood and build a pig
Cool.
pen and all this, stuff that I otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to do. But then my final host family was located in a bigger town, and I had more transportation options. It was way easier for me to get to school. Yeah, and in general, I think that this host family was very experienced with hosting kids because they used to host other people before. And this, like the last host family, she was also an AFS coordinator for the area. So she was very well versed in like how to deal with conflict management, or she knew what it was like kind of to be an exchange student. And because she was a social worker, so I lived with 3 other like foster care kids who lived in her house full time as well. So my last host family was very understanding and was able to accommodate for a lot of my needs, and I appreciate that.
That's great. Joey Lenny, do you see any questions in the chat box?
Hi, this is Joey Lenny. Yes, we actually have 2 questions that came in the chat. Sorry, I'm gonna turn my video on. Hi, everyone. So the first question that came in was from Allie, and she shared, I work on Nestle Y and CBYX and my colleagues with Flex. So it's exciting to hear that these opportunities are being shared. I'm curious to know if there was anything that was done if there was anything that was done on this programs that made you feel safe and supported while abroad. I'd love to better conceptualize removing barriers. And Ali, if you have anything else to add, I welcome you to unmute yourself and add. But yes, does anybody want to share anything that made you feel safe or supported while you were abroad?
I can go first, just because I talked about it a little bit. So the CBYX program already had a mechanism in place for students after they fill out their health intake form. They will follow up with anybody who takes medications or has mental health issues, and connect them with a German American psychiatrist that lives in Germany to kind of make a care plan. So I thought that just step was very helpful. They also just kind of in the list of built-in instructions that they sent, because there was a lot, I will say, there are a lot of instructions. They were really comprehensive, and they gave tips for like what to do when you're bringing medication. Disability just happened to be a topic that came up, not just happened to be, like it was included as a topic in all of the materials we were given to prepare. Like I specifically remember for taking medication abroad, they advised us to like bring a letter from our doctor that prescribed it. So I did that, and I ended up not needing it, but it was still like great to have that information. So I was ready to go and like had less surprises when I got there.
Thanks for sharing. That's very helpful. Anybody else would like to share or add?
Well, I can share. I actually talked about it a bit, but I can say more. Well, I always feel safe in the situation where they know they have information in general about me, like that I have some accommodations, like I'm, for example, blind person and I need, for example, aid to for example, like, I don't know, if I'm in the event, I need aid to, move around and stuff like that. And I always feel safe in the situation where they have information about it. And I think that in general, Flex had the information, and I said already that they were ready to accept me, you know.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Michelle, would you like to add anything?
Yes, so in AFS, they always had the coordinators that you could go to if you had any issues. And I think like even in Germany in general, I felt very safe. Like I never felt worried like walking outside late at night by myself. I remember I lost my wallet twice, once on the train and once just like in a square. And I went to the police and they were able to find it for me in like less than 24 hours. So yeah, I didn't really have any, issues with feeling safe while I was in Germany.
Thank you.
I do want
Well,
to
the next-
add really fast, sorry, while we're on the topic.
Go ahead.
So I'd actually since the CBYX staff, because it's both the Cultural Vistas is the US facilitator and the German side, were very open about how to improve. So I actually have talked to them about suggestions and things I liked as well. So if anybody wants to reach out to me personally, especially like if you're affiliated with these abroad programs, like the person who asked the question, feel free to reach out and I can send you this like detailed list of suggestions and things that the program did right with respect to being accommodating to disabilities for people with different economic backgrounds, just diverse participants in general. So feel free to reach out and get those resources from me.
Great, thank you. Another question that we have, and Justin, I'd like you to come back on because I think you might have some insight into this question as well.
Sure, and I'll just briefly add too, if you're having any trouble finding Samsara's contact info, we can just go ahead and send clearinghouse@myusa.org a message and we can help you.
I'm sorry, can I say something real quick? There's some of us that can't type because our hands don't work. So if we have a question, I guess we'll wait, obviously. So what should we do?
Yes,
now?
I was going to just ask the next question that was sent in the chat and invite anyone to ask their questions by unmuting themselves.
Thank you so much. I just want to let you know that.
Of course. Thank you for asking. So the next question was, can individuals with significant disabilities, such as Down syndrome or wheelchair users, do exchange? I'd suppose that need to be independent to do so, not need to use an attendant care.
Yeah, just believe I turned my mic on here. Yeah, this is definitely a different question. Panelists are welcome to weigh in, but I can definitely weigh in too. We actually did a webinar a while back with first a gentleman from Argentina who went and earned his master's in aeronautics at Embraer Aeronautics University in Florida. He's severe disabilities, used the power chair, and he brought his Argentine PCA with him to the United States. And also we interviewed on that same webinar a woman who worked with CIEE for a time, has now moved on to other opportunities, and but earlier in her internship days, she did a summer program internship with CIEE in Germany. And also again, a woman who uses a power chair and also uses PCAs. And she managed to basically get an agreement set up with her, I think it was her Medicaid affiliated state provider. Like every state kind of has its own different sort of Medicaid setup in the way that the organization it funnels the money through, but she was able to get an agreement with whatever that entity was to basically continue supporting her to pay for her PCAs. So she brought American PCAs with her to Germany. So yeah, definitely we've seen people do a variety of different kind of creative ways of covering their PCA costs while they're abroad. We know another gentleman who's earning his PhD or master's in Oxford right now, and also another guy who uses PCAs. So we're always, of course, clearinghouse@myusa.org. You're always welcome to contact us with more questions about that, and we can put you in touch with real people. So yeah.
Thank you, Justin, and I'll try and find that webinar to share in the chat box. The person who has raised their hand, I don't want to mispronounce your name, but you're welcome to ask your question now.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Ligia. Well, you kind of answered the question I had about, I was asking about students that are people that have, they use mobility devices and then also that need attendant care. So, and then I guess the financial aid part, you might have already touched on it. I might have missed it, but you can speak to that again if you have already, or if not, then if you can let me know if there's any like scholarships or if any of the people that are on the other panelists, if they can, maybe if they had some ideas around how to like raise money for this, or because there's so many students that, you know, are living under poverty because
Raise money for
we're
study abroad
disabled.
or for disability related costs for study abroad?
Both. So for the program in general and then for disability, because you just, I think you touched on the disability related stuff right now, right?
Yeah.
Just for in general, like for the whole program. And then if there are any students that are people that have done the study abroad program that are in, that do have like that do have mobility devices, then also that have disabilities that affect their mobility, can you put me in touch with them? I'm a school board member. I'm on the high school board for the district that I live in. And so our district has a very robust quote unquote special ed program. And I just want to bring more resources. So any information you can give me would be great. And I would love to like connect students with people that have already experienced this.
Yeah, Joey Lenny, could you email me her name?
Yes, of course.
Thank
Follow
you.
up with you all. Yeah. I feel like, you know, the people here on this panel basically had fully funded opportunities, and that was kind of how they fundraised. But Samsara, I think you kind of had a take on kind of what your program did to make it accessible for low income individuals. Maybe could you comment about like fundraising?
So there are definitely good things about the CBYX for YP program. And I think one of the best things is they comprehensively try to prepare you for the costs of the program and give you enough time to raise some of the money yourself, because it's funded for the most part. They just encourage you to raise money for yourself just when you're just for being abroad, or for any like extra costs that you might occur, because you do get a stipend, or you do get, you know, your living is funded, your food is funded, stuff like that. But they always encourage having like extra funds. Honestly, they don't have too many, like outside of what the program already provides, they didn't really give a lot of extra opportunities, but they did give you advance notice so you could maybe do like a GoFundMe or something. I think this was I think it's a hard balance for programs like this, because, you know, they're supporting you fully as a student, and they want to get the most students as possible, but like it seemed like there wasn't a lot of extra opportunity for extra funding support. So
and that's concerning for people. That's not accessible for students that, you know, that are low income and that don't have the resources. And I want, you know, those students to also have these opportunities, because it's important for everyone, you know, then that means it's not accessible. So I don't know if there's a way of developing something like that, like some sort of grant program or something like that within your organization, that would open up the doors for so many students that don't have those privileges.
Well, I appreciate that feedback. What we pretty much would advise is, okay, so again, there's Department of State has many programs that are almost completely fully funded, like Michelle did a Fulbright, that was almost completely fully funded. CBYX programs are pretty much completely fully funded. So I mean, what we recommend is that, you know, if you're low income, you look at, first of all, you look for a college that gives financial aid. And you know, a college gives financial aid for study abroad when the credits are transferable available back towards your degree, because like many colleges that will allow you to transfer back credit for the classes you take abroad, that makes those programs eligible for federal financial aid. So when you go abroad, like when I studied for a year in Santiago, Chile, as a college student, I got to take my financial aid package with me. So like if I was a low-income student and I had more extensive financial aid needs on my FAFSA, I would have pretty much carried all of those grants and scholarships with me abroad. And in fact, I was able to take some of my financial aid. I took a pretty big chunk of my financial aid abroad with me. So it literally didn't cost, actually it cost me less for that year that I spent abroad than it would have cost me to spend it at Berkeley. So first, checking to make sure that the college you go to, if you're going to do it during college, is you can transfer back for credit. And second of all, looking for programs like under Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, looking on our website for fully funded fellowships. There are a handful of programs out there that will offer exchange opportunities that are competitive. And there's also programs too, if you're interested in like volunteerism or internships, that will offer reimbursed work type or volunteer type opportunities. Peace Corps is one of those, for example, where you volunteer abroad for 2 years in the flagship program, or if you do Peace Corps response, it's less, and you're volunteer, but you get a stipend. And so, but it is definitely, we encourage people who want to learn more about kind of ways of fundraising or finding scholarships to get in touch with us. Yeah, to get in touch with us to learn more. And I'm going to kind of go through our final announcements now. We are kind of a little over time. We did get a question in registration about service and emotional support animals, and I'd encourage you to get in touch with us, clearinghouse@myusa.org with those questions. It's definitely possible for people to go abroad with their service animals. And emotional support animals, probably that we just haven't seen as much of that because it's a little newer. But
I will say that there was a girl with an ESA in my program.
Exactly. So there you go. So thank you so much. So the recording and transcript will be made available after. We're also going to be sending you a follow-up email with a survey. The recording will be probably next week, but you'll get the survey and just the survey today. So we hope you'll fill that out. And please keep an eye out for future webinars. We're going to be having in April, we're going to be having a group of exchange professionals answering your burning questions, people with disabilities burning questions about international exchange, like financial aid, for example. And in May, we're going to be having a talk about connecting with disability communities abroad, because that is one of the things that can really enhance your experience as a person with a disability is the kind of fellowship that you kind of strike up with people with disabilities like yours, or maybe not like yours, but having the disability kind of gives you that in. And with that, I just kind of want to thank everybody for joining us today. And we wish you a great weekend and a great rest of your year. We hope to see you at future webinars. Bye.
Quickly, if panelists could stay just to take a picture if possible.
Thanks for the announcement.
Also, this is totally unofficial and not affiliated, and I think I might have missed most people getting off, but I have a unofficial list of funded abroad fellowships, so I would be happy to share that with anyone. It's literally just a Google Doc, and I can post the link in the chat, although I've been trying to figure out how to post it.
Can you share that with me over email?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share it with anyone. It's just kind of things I threw together that I found in my, searching for abroad opportunities.
Thanks, Samsara.
Great, that sounds awesome. I'm just gonna smile, take a quick screenshot,
Yeah.
and thank you for being here.